So, today's topic is swine flu, that is human influenza type A H1N1. Now, regarding introduction, human influenza type A H1N1 is also known as swine flu because the virus is similar to those found in pigs. Swine influenza, that is swine flu, is a respiratory disease of pigs caused by type A influenza that regularly cause outbreaks of influenza among pigs. Transmission of the virus from pigs to humans is not common and does not always leads to human flu. If transmission does cause human flu, it is called zoonotic swine flu. The symptoms of swine flu are expected to be similar to the symptom of regular human seasonal influenza and include fever, lethargy, lack of appetite, and coughing. Some people with swine flu also have reported runny nose, sore throat, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. Now, regarding problem statement, it is a pandemic in 2009 caused by a new strain of influenza A H1N1 virus which differs in its pathogenicity from seasonal influenza in two key aspects. First, as the majority of human population has little or no pre-existing immunity to the virus, the impact of infection has been in a wider age range, in particular among children and young adults. Secondly, the virus can infect the lower respiratory tract and can cause rapidly progressive pneumonia, especially in children and young to middle-aged adults. A new influenza virus emerges to which the general population has little or no immunity. The new virus must be able to replicate in humans and cause disease, and it must be efficiently transmitted from one human to another. These are the prerequisites for pandemic influenza. Soon after the outbreak of H1N1 virus in the United States and Mexico in March 2019, the government of India started screening people coming from the affected countries at airports for swine flu symptoms. The first case of the flu in India was found on the Hyderabad airport on 13th May 2009 as a man traveling from US to India that was found H1N1 positive. Subsequently, more confirmed cases were reported, and as the rate of transmission of flu increased in the beginning of August, with the first death due to the swine flu in India in Pune, and panic began to spread. The world is now in post-pandemic period. Now it is a regular flu virus and continues to be circulated seasonally worldwide. On 26 September 2011, WHO has adopted a new nomenclature as Influenza A H1N1 PDM09. Now, as I told earlier in the presentation of influenza A virus is unique among the viruses because it is frequently subjected to major and minor antigenic variation. Like all influenza virus, swine flu virus also change constantly. Pig can harbor several influenza virus including avian influenza, human influenza virus as well as swine influenza virus. So what is shift or reassortment? When two or more different strains of a virus combine to form a new subtype having a mixture of the surface antigen of two strains. When influenza virus from different species infect pigs, the virus can reassort or there is exchange of genes, and new viruses that are a mix of swine, human and or avian influenza virus can emerge. Now, what is drift? Drift is gradual change. An influenza virus infects a healthy cell and by mistake made by viral DNA polymerase during the replication that causes virus with a new antigenic variant to be produced. Due to pressure from antibodies that host develops against viral antigen, the virus with new antigenic variation is selected and a slightly different strain of virus begin to circulate in population. Antigenic drift is a natural mutation over time of known strain of influenza which may lead to a loss of immunity or in vaccine mismatch, so that a different virus begin to circulate in the population. Now pigs can harbor different influenza virus that can be adopted to human. But why pigs? So because pigs have both type of receptor for influenza in the respiratory system, such as alpha 2, 3 and alpha 2 and 6. While the virus circulating in birds have difficulties to infect us because it uses mostly alpha 2 and 3 receptor, and we that means humans have only these receptors in the lower respiratory tract, that is in lung region, which makes the spread by cough or sneeze difficult. If the virus enters pig, it will find that alpha 2, 3 in the entire respiratory system, including the upper respiratory system. It will also find that alpha 2, 6 receptor, that is, if it is able to use it, it will guarantee a higher chance of transmission among humans, because human has alpha 2 and 6 receptor on its upper respiratory tract. There is also the issue of temperature. Bird have a more active metabolism than ours. Chicken, for instance, have an average temperature of 42 degrees centigrade in such a way that the virus adapted to replicate in birds generally has its enzyme functioning with less efficiency in humans. Pigs, however, have an average temperature of 39 degrees, very close to ours, and a convenient intermediary between birds and humans. So when a pig, in the pig, alpha 2, 3 and 2, 6 receptor both are there. So from the bird, that is avian to swine infection is possible, but birds to human infection are very rare or not possible, and human to pig infection are also common. So there is reassortment, chances of reassortment in the pigs is increased. How swine flu spread among the pigs? Swine flu virus is spread mostly through close contacts among pigs and from contaminated objects moving between infected and uninfected pigs. What are different symptoms? How to identify that there is a influenza in pigs, that is swine influenza in pigs? There are various symptoms, such as when we talk about respiratory symptom, there is coughing or sore throat. Intestinal symptom include diarrhea. Nasopharyngeal symptoms, sneezing, or there may be congestion of nose and eye. Systemic fever, weight loss or poor growth. And psychological, their pig may be lethargic or there may be loss of appetite. Now regarding influenza, swine flu influenza H1N1 in humans, agent factor is influenza virus A, H1N1 2009. Reservoir of infection, humans and pigs. Source of infection, case or subclinical cases. And communicability 3 to 5 days from clinical onset in adults, up to 7 days in young children. Peak viral shedding occur on day 1 of symptoms, that is preclinical shedding of virus during late incubation period, that cannot be ruled out. Now host factor, all age and both sexes are included. Incidence higher in extremes of ages. High risk groups are children aged less than 5 years, especially less than 2 years old children, pregnant mother, health worker, comorbid conditions such as lung disease, heart disease, liver disease, kidney disease, blood disorder, diabetes, etc. Immunocompromised persons, long term, and persons on long term steroid therapy. Now regarding immunity, antibodies appears in 7 days after an attack, and it reaches maximum level in 2 weeks and drop to pre-infection level in 8 to 12 months. Now, regarding environmental factor, India usually witnesses two peaks, that is in January to March, and post monsoon season, that is August to October. However, it may vary from state to state. Overcrowding play an important role. However, rural areas are not spared. It affects mostly urban and peri-urban areas. Close population, that is overcrowding, high attack rates may be witnessed in army barracks, college hostels, schools, religious congregations or gatherings, residential hostel of a school, aircraft ship. Disease transmission, that is airborne and contact, droplets are main source of infection, and fomites are also play an important role. Now about pork meat during the epidemic. Swine influenza virus are not transmitted by food. Eating properly handled and cooked pork and pork products is safe. Cooking pork to an temperature of 160 degree Fahrenheit kills the swine flu virus, as it does occurs bacteria and viruses. Now there is a question, how long can an infected person spread swine flu to others, that is communicability and infectivity. Incubation period is 2 to 3 days, but it could be ranges up to 7 days. Infectivity, potentially contagious as long as the patient or case is potentially contagious as long as they are symptomatic, and possibly for up to 7 days following illness onset. Children, especially younger children, might potentially be contagious for longer period. Now what are the clinical feature or how swine flu present in human being? Cardinal symptoms of influenza like illness, that is ILI, that may present as acute respiratory infection, that is sudden cough and sore throat with measured fever of more than or equal to 104 degree Fahrenheit with onset within the last 10 days. The other associated symptoms are muscles or body aches, headaches, fatigue, vomiting and diarrhea. That is more common in children, and about 25% of cases it may be reported. Running or stuffy nose. Now what are different emergency warning signs? These are very important. Mostly the most cases recover at home, but watch for emergency signs. Emergency warning signs are recommended for immediate medical care, for seeking immediate medical care. In adults, these are difficult breathing or shortness of breath, pain or pressure in the chest or abdomen, sudden dizziness, confusion, severe or persistent vomiting. Flu-like symptom improve but then returns with fever and worse cough. Now what are different emergency warning signs in children? Fast breathing or troubled breathing, bluish or grey skin color, not drinking enough fluid, severe or persistent vomiting, not waking up or not interacting, irritable, the child does not want to be held. Flu-like symptom improve but then return with fever and worsen cough. Now there are some definition regarding swine flu. What are different case definitions? First of all, suspected case. It is defined as a person with acute febrile respiratory illness, that is fever more than 38 degrees centigrade with onset within 7 days of close contact with a person who is a confirmed case of swine influenza A H1N1 virus infection, or within 7 days of travel to community where there are one or more confirmed swine influenza A case, or the person resides in community where there are one or more confirmed swine flu cases. Now what is probable case? It is defined as a person with an acute febrile respiratory illness who is positive for influenza A but unsubtypable for H1 and H3 by influenza RT-PCR or reagent used to detect seasonal influenza virus infection, or it is positive, person is positive for influenza A by an influenza rapid test or an influenza immunofluorescent assay plus meets criteria for a suspected case. or individual with a clinically compatible illness who died or of an unexplained acute respiratory illnesses who is considered to be epidemiologically linked to a probable or confirmed case. Now, what is confirmed case? A person with an acute febrile respiratory illness with laboratory confirmed swine flu, swine influenza virus A H1N1 infection and WHO approved laboratory by one or more of the following tests. What are different tests? RT-PCR, viral culture, or fourfold rise in swine influenza virus specific neutralizing antibodies. Now, what are different guidelines for screening, categorization and treatment of H1N1 influenza issued by Government of India? There are three categories, category A, B and C. What are symptoms in category A? Mild fever, cough, sore throat, with or without body ache, diarrhea and vomiting. In these cases, testing is not required, H1N1 testing is not required and treatment is symptomatic and monitored and reassessed the patient after 24 to 48 hours by doctors. And isolation is required. Treatment do not require oseltamivir or Tamiflu and should be treated for symptom mentioned above, that is mild fever, cough or sore throat. The patient should be monitored for their progress and reassessed at 24 to 48 hours by the doctor. Patients should confine themselves at home and avoid mixing up with public and high risk member in the family. Now, category B, that is uncomplicated but severe symptoms or high risk groups. It can be further classified into B1 and B2 category. In B1, in addition to all the sign and symptom mentioned under category A, if patient has high grade fever, in case of category A, there is low grade fever. In B, high grade fever and severe sore throat. B2, in addition to all sign and symptom of category A, individual having one or more of the following high risk condition. Such as age more than or equal to 65 years, pregnancy, infant and children aged less than 5 years, especially less than 2 years of age children, chronic respiratory disease, chronic heart, kidney, liver and neurological disease, diabetes mellitus, blood disorders, person with immunosuppression, extreme obesity, that is BMI is more than 40 kg per meter square, and malignancy. Now, testing of H1N1 is also not required in category B patients. Treatment they should receive oseltamivir along with symptomatic treatment, that is Tamiflu should be given in category B. Isolation, all patients of category B1 and B2 should confine themselves at home and avoid mixing with public and high risk member in the family. Isolation is also required in category A. Now, category C, that is complicated swine flu. In addition to sign and symptom of category A and B, if the patient has one or more of the following sign and symptom. What are symptoms? If there is breathlessness, hemoptysis, altered mental status, somnolence or poor feeding in children, seizures, decreased urine output, persistence or worsening of initial symptoms beyond 72 hours, worsening of underlying chronic condition like diabetes, chronic kidney disease, etc. And what are different signs? Tachypnea, oxygen saturation is less than 90%, hypotension, reduced urine output or cyanosis. Testing is required. So, testing is required only category C, and treatment immediate hospitalization and treatment with oseltamivir, that is Tamiflu. So, Tamiflu is given in category B and C and isolation is required in all the categories, but testing is required only in category C. Now, clinical management protocol for seasonal influenza, that is swine flu. Patient will be assessed for categorization first of all. Then those patients falling under the category A and B does not require hospitalization. Category C patient should be immediately hospitalized. Now course of illness should be assessed. Fever and systemic symptoms usually last 3 days, occasionally 5 to 8 days, and gradually diminishes. Cough and malaise may persist more than 2 weeks, and full recovery may take 1 to 2 weeks or longer, especially in the elderly. What are different complications may be there? A wide spectrum of complications have been reported in severe progressive disease. What are these complications in children? Otitis media, sinusitis, parotitis, pneumonia, croup, bronchiolitis, myocarditis, rhabdomyolysis, encephalopathy and encephalitis, invasive bacterial co-infection, Reyes syndrome. In adults, exacerbation of chronic disease, pneumonia, acute respiratory distress syndrome, parotitis, bronchitis, sinusitis, myocarditis, pericarditis, invasive bacterial co-infection such as Staph aureus infection, invasive pulmonary aspergillosis. Now comes to the treatment. What are different guiding principles? First of all, early implementation of infection control precaution to minimize nosocomial or household spread of disease through frequent hand wash and social distancing. Prompt treatment to prevent severe illness and death. Early identification and follow-up of person at risk. Now what are different supportive therapy? Supportive therapy in category A and B according to the symptom. Plenty of oral fluid should be given. Paracetamol for fever. For sore throat, short course of topical decongestant, saline nasal drops, throat lozenges and steam inhalation may be beneficial. Avoid use of salicylate due to risk of Reyes syndrome, and closely monitor the underlying high risk condition. In category C, supportive treatment is antiviral therapy, IV fluid, oxygen supplementation, maintain hydration, electrolyte balance and nutrition, antibiotics for secondary infection, ventilatory support, vasopressor for shock, monitor respiratory rate, oxygen saturation and conscious level, that is orientation is also assessed. Now antiviral medication. As already told, oseltamivir is recommended drug for treatment. All patients in category B and C should receive oseltamivir, that is Tamiflu. Empiric antiviral therapy is often necessary and treatment should not be delayed while awaiting confirmed test result. Initial treatment as early as possible within 48 hours preferably, and usual duration of therapy is for 5 days. Now according to body weight and age, there are different doses, therapeutic and prophylactic. Therapeutic dose is BD and prophylactic dose is OD. So if the weight is less than 15 kg or age is 1 to 2 years, therapeutic dose of Tamiflu is 30 mg BD and prophylactic dose is same but for OD. 15 to 23 kg or 3 to 5 years, dose is 45 mg. 24 to 40 kg or 6 to 9 years, dose is 60 mg, and more than 40 kg or 10 to 12 years or above, that is for adults, 75 mg BD, and prophylactically it should be given OD. Now for infant, if infant is less than 3 months, 12 mg BD is given, but for prophylactic dose is not recommended unless situation judged critically by clinician. 3 to 5 month old infant, 20 mg dose is recommended, and for 6 month to 11 month, 25 mg dose is recommended. Alternate medicine is Janamivir, that should be given for age more than 5 years. Dose 2 inhalation, that for 5 mg BD for 5 days. Now what is discharge policy for hospitalized patient? Patient may be discharged as soon as they are medically fit. Advice should be given for home isolation for a period of 7 days from the onset of illness, and use droplet precautions. No need for repeat testing, at the time of discharge. For healthcare staff, use of universal personal protective equipment by all healthcare staff in isolation ward or ICU. Vaccination to be provided to healthcare worker as per national guidelines, and consider antiviral chemoprophylaxis for exposed healthcare staff for 7 days following the last exposure during epidemic or outbreak situation. Now regarding prevention, individual level पे hand hygiene, respiratory hygiene, cough etiquette, staying away, or that is social distancing and use of mask. Now there are different type of vaccines for prevention: inactivated vaccine, that is flu shot, and live attenuated vaccine, that is flu mist, and it should be given yearly for recommended groups. Inactivated vaccine, Indian Council of Medical Research, Government of India has recommended Northern Hemisphere quadrivalent or tetravalent vaccine, that is also recommended by WHO, that needs to be used. Quadrivalent vaccine for use in 2019 and 20 influenza season contain the following, and there are H1N1A virus, H3N2 virus, A virus, and 2B viruses. Vaccine is recommended for healthcare worker working in hospital or institutional setting with likelihood of exposure to influenza virus. They should be vaccinated. Pregnant women, irrespective of the duration of pregnancy, as it is a killed vaccine. Person with chronic illnesses, it should be given. Vaccine is desirable for elderly individual, that is more than 65 years old persons, and children between 6 months to 8 years old. Now live attenuated vaccine, that is in the form of nasal spray. It is also known as flu mist. It recommended age group is 2 to 49 years. Side effects may be runny nose, nasal congestion, sore throat, low grade fever, muscle aches, headaches. Contraindication, as it is a live vaccine, immunocompromised state or pregnancy. All nasal spray influenza vaccine for the 2019 and 20 season will contain 4 influenza viruses, as in flu shot, influenza virus A H1N1, influenza virus A H3N3, and 2 influenza B viruses. Now limitation of influenza vaccine. Influenza vaccine is most effective when circulating viruses are well matched with vaccine virus. Even with appropriate matching, efficacy of vaccine may be about 70 to 80%. The available vaccine takes about 2 to 3 weeks for development of immunity. So, for the healthcare worker, vaccine should be administered at least 1 month prior to the commencement of the season in which flu is expected. Till such time, use of chemoprophylaxis may be considered. Considering the risk perspective, the modalities of infection prevention and control practices like personal hygiene, frequent washing of hands, respiratory etiquettes, and airborne precautions should be strictly adhered to. Now, thank you for watching this.